Good to see you, my man. Dixie and I have been under the weather, and we've recuperated. I think she's still wore out. I know I am, but and both of us got sick right after that. It's been a mess. But she does want to say thank you for all your concern. Her stepfather passed away. She had to take a whirlwind trip to California, and sadly, we got her a flight take off at 8 o'clock in the morning, and or 9 o'clock in the morning. It's been a straight through flight, and we get there and they wouldn't check her baggage and wouldn't let her on that plane, so she had to wait till 11 o'clock to get on another plane with the layover. And so she got to California, and just as she landed, her stepfather passed away. So I did get to see before he passed, but everything went well, and we covered your prayers, and thank you for thinking about her during that time. Elaine, good to see her this morning, and she's been under the weather. I think colds and crud and everything else has been going around with everybody. I know that's par for the course this time of year. Yes, sir. Sir? Okay. Oh yeah, she's coming home this week. Wonderful, good. Is we gonna get to see her? Who knows? Okay. All righty. I don't know of anything else other than Forrest at Vanderbilt been in the hospital, and at least that's the information I've got. Is he still in the hospital, Carolyn? Okay. All righty. Well, guess what? It's been, what, 4 weeks? Something like that? And so what we're going to do is, if you will let me, we're going to go into Isaiah 47 today and just kind of sneak into it like nothing has ever happened, all right? So if you'll remember back in Isaiah 46 and 47, we combine these two chapters together. And the reason being is because Isaiah 46 is kind of like God gives the verdict against Babylon, and 47 is the sentence. And that's the way we can kind of look at these two chapters as they combine. And as we got into this, I want you to remember that in Isaiah 46, they brought in two gods. One of them was called Marduk, and actually just called him Bel, which means Lord. And the Lord God of Babylon at that time was Marduk, or Marduk, however you want to say it. And his cohort Nebo was kind of like the prophet or the writer that told everybody what was going to be happening and everything else. And in Isaiah 46, God kind of makes fun of these two beings, saying that you've got to build your gods, and then you have to carry them around. And that's why he said Bel and Nebo were drawn in ox carts and everything else. And but he says, when it comes to me, you have to carry your gods. But when it comes to me, I am the God who made you, and I'm going to carry you. So there's a big difference between the idols of Babylon, and he makes this contrast between the idols of Babylon and him in Isaiah 46. And then we see in Isaiah 46, basically, what we had there as far as Babylon was concerned. Babylon was, for lack of a better term, a theocracy. You had Bel Marduk, who was the head god, kind of like the Apollos or the Greek pantheon. He was the head honcho, and so you had Bel Marduk, and his descendant, according to Babylonian mythology, was the king, and so Nebuchadnezzar was the son of God. And if you'll remember, over all the rulers of that day and age claimed to be descended from the gods, or whatever gods they were. And so this theocracy was the God that gave him his power, gave Nebuchadnezzar his power, and Nebuchadnezzar who gave that God the power. All right. So if you get your mind wrapped around that. But what God does in chapter 46, or 47 rather, he tears all that down. Everything is going to be brought to the ground, and we see that Nebuchadnezzar All of his gods are going to be destroyed and everything. We saw that last week, or last time. And here in chapter 47, picture Babylon as being a Mardi Gras float that kind of got tore up at the end of the run, you know. This is what happens to Babylon. And so when we look at chapter 47, what we'll see here, verses 1 through 3, Babylon, the nation, is summoned to come from the throne that it holds, you know, the power it holds, down to the dust. And what they do is, it says, verse 47, verse 1, go down, sit in the dust, virgin daughter Babylon. Sit on the ground without a throne, queen city of the Babylonians. No more will you be called tender or delicate. Now, this past week, somebody was questioning me as to why they always picture nations as in the Bible as women. This is personification. It's something that's been done forever and ever and ever. Israel pictured as the bride, of God. You know, the bride, married to God. We see the bride of Christ in the New Testament. We see that Israel was also pictured as a harlot. And so depending on how they're looking at the nations, that's the way they're presenting them when they personify these nations. And that's not unusual. We do it here in the United States, and they've done it for centuries. As a matter of fact, back in the 1800s, remember the song Columbia, the Gem of the Ocean? I think it was old Popeye theme song. But anyway, Columbia was a woman, personified as a woman. Then you have Lady Liberty sitting on Ellis Island, personified as a woman. And what they're doing here when artists or when people talk about a nation and they personify her as a woman, like America, sometimes they're presented as being strong or radiant or protective or motherly, you know, a nation is. But when they're describing, they're going to criticize it, they're pictured as being corrupt, exhausted, and hypocritical and oppressive, and these pictures that we have here. And so that's what Isaiah is doing. He's using these personifications, the virgin daughter of Babylon. And what he's accomplishing here, it's the command for those on the throne to descend the throne. No more are you going to be called tender and delicate. So this virgin daughter, the picture here, the way Babylon looked at herself, you know, she was a little cartoon character. She was full of vim, vigor, and energy and the most beautiful thing on the planet. But what God is saying is, no, you're not. As a matter of fact, we're going to reverse that language that you use, and I'm going to use this reversal showing that you are nothing more than a one who has been brought down and brought down low. And what we understand is that thrones collapse when God stands up. And sometimes thrones get to thinking they're too big, or people on the thrones get to thinking they're too big or too powerful. And what happens is that when God brings judgment, those nations will fall. And so this is what we see here. Verse 2 is take millstones and grind flowers. Who? This virgin Babylon, the one who is fallen, who is down in the dust now. You grind flour, take off your veil, lift up your skirts, bare your legs, and wade through the streams. And what this language is doing here is going from royal comfort to slave labor, all right? He's bringing them from this high position down to the lowest position he can give them. That's what Isaiah is doing right now. Understand that queens, Babylon was the queen city, queens do not grind meal, queens do not do these things. That is task for slaves. And so he's painting this picture of Babylon, who has gone from being a beautiful virgin down to this slave in captivity doing menial tasks and what have you. Then he brings shame upon him. He says, your nakedness will be exposed and your shame uncovered. I will take vengeance and I will spare no one. And so what God is doing is saying, Babylon, I'm going to publicly expose you and shame you. And of course he does that when he sends in Cyrus and the Medo-Persian Empire, and they bring Babylon to destruction, which is what this whole judgment thing is about. And there's a reason for that. What he's saying here is Babylon, I'm going to bring vengeance upon you. No one is going to be spared. Everybody in this community or in this empire is going to be feeling my wrath, and you're going to be brought low. So what God is doing here in verse 4 identifies himself as being the judge. He's not just God. He's the judge of all nations, whether it's Babylon, Assyria, Israel, China, bring them on down to us. The whole thing is God's the judge, and he wants everybody to know that he is your Redeemer. The Lord Almighty is his name, the Holy One of Israel. He's using three designations here. The Redeemer, he's the one that's going to bring Israel out of captivity. The Lord Almighty, El Shaddai, is his name, all right? Yahweh El Shaddai is his name, and he is the Holy One of Israel. That's who they are going to respect. And when Babylon falls, he wants them to know who is bringing them down. It's not just Persia. Remember, this is all 150 years before everything happens, all right? He wants them to know that God is the one who instigated all of this. And so when we look at Isaiah 47, it's not Persian Empire. That's not what we're looking at here. It's kind of like Israel is the one holding up the victory banner over the defeat of Babylon. Persia actually did the work, but it's Israel and their God who does it, because God is the one who brought destruction upon them and salvation to his people. All right? Now, this is what he's trying to get the people to understand. I am your God. I am the God who is accomplishing this. Okay? Now, when we look at Babylon, that was at the time before this writing, it was growing in power, and it winds up taking over Syria and what have you. And so he's talking about this place who is going to be carrying Israel off into captivity, and they are the most powerful nation on the face of the earth at one time, all right? But this power that they had, this ability to go out and wreak havoc on all the little nations and subjugate them and what have you, that is going to be reduced to nothing. And they're going to lose their place in the world. For example, remember at one time Spain was a powerhouse in the world. The reason I say Spain, because New Iberia, this was a Spanish settlement. And people don't realize that, think it's all Cajun. No, it was a Spanish settlement. New Iberia. Where's Old Iberia? Well, that's over the Rock of Gibraltar, the Iberian Peninsula, over at the what do they call that? Straits of whatever. Yes, Eric. Yeah. Well, right. Well, that's why we have so many Spanish names in the community. Okay, and so people don't realize that or don't pay any attention to that. Of course, everybody's intermingled now, and so we've got Viators and Soniers mixing together, and things like that. So, but what he's saying here is these forces are going to be silenced, just like Spain at one time was a powerhouse. You can go from Spain to France to England. All of those at one time were powerhouses, but yet they all came down, right? And so these forces are going to be silenced in verse 5. He says, sit in silence, go in darkness, queen city of the Babylonians. No more will you be called queen of kingdoms. Why? Because God is going to be bringing you down. And when we look at, in the scripture, silence, it often signifies judgment. If you remember over the book of Revelation, after the opening of the seventh seal, there's silence in heaven, right? And what judgment has happened, right? And so it signals judgment is what we're looking at here. So sit in silence. What judgment is coming upon you? What happens is all the bragging stops. We've got tanks, we've got armor, we've got planes, we've got tanks, we've got all these things. Or of course they're saying we've got chariots, we've got all these things. Well, guess what? There's going to be guys bringing elephants, all right? You don't have any of those. The music, all the partying fades. You're not going to be so happy anymore. You're going to start paying attention to what's going on around you. And the lights are going to go out. And when that happens, that society falls. And so what happens is God is saying you're no longer queen of all the kingdoms. Okay? You forgot I'm a king. So you're not a queen any longer. And when God revokes a title, it happens like that. And that's what's going on here with Babylon. Sit in silence, you've been judged. And the reason for their judgment was because they got too big for their britches. All right? Verse 6 and 7 tells, God says, look, I was angry with my people. And he was. He was angry with Israel because they, through Ahaz all the way through Hezekiah, there was a problem. They were worshiping idols. They turned their back upon God, or they just gave God lip service. They served Molech, sacrificing their children. They served Asherah, had the groves and the poles and what have you up here. They served sun gods, Baal, even had things in the temple where they used male prostitutes and female prostitutes and doing all these things. And that's why God brought them to their knees to get their attention. All right? It started off with the Assyrians coming in. Of course, God spared them at that time by sending one angel to kill 185,000 of them one night. And the Assyrians took off. But he did that to spare them and let them know there's something worse coming if you don't straighten up. Well, they don't straighten up. So Babylon here is the recipient of God's judgment upon Israel. He says, I was angry with my people. They desecrated my inheritance. They did this by turning to other deities. And the covenant that we had together, I'm going to be their God, they're going to be my people. That covenant that we entered into, they breached that covenant. They became adulterers in that sense, all right? And so what God says is, look, I gave them into your hands, Babylon, but you showed them no mercy. Even on the age you laid a very heavy yoke. You said, this is Babylon, he said, you said, and I quote, I am forever the eternal queen. But you didn't consider these things or reflect on what happened. Okay? You let your britches get too big for you. Okay? But what he's saying, there's a big difference between being God's instrument and then trying to act like God. God can use you, and he will use you. But when you think you're the one in control, you've lost all perspective. They were taking even the old and, abusing them is what God is saying here. You're acting like you are in my position, and you're not, all right? Queen, verse 7. Presumption of permanence. Every nation on the face of this planet thought at the height of their power that they were going to exist forever. And they didn't. Okay? They will fall. No doubt about it. For a matter of fact, she even says this in verse 7, I'm going to continue forever, the eternal queen. That's Babylon. That was their attitude. However, y'all remember the Roman Empire? Sure you do. Right? We've all heard about the Caesars and all these guys. The Western Roman Empire, from the start at the little village to its collapse, lasted 1,200 years. 1,200 years, start to finish. Now, what happens is why they fell, well, it's because they had wars going on all over the place, and there was money and everything else. No. There were several things that involved. Number one, it was neglect of civic virtue. And what I mean by that, when the citizens no longer paid attention to the laws of the land. All right? Imagine what it would be like. We have speed limit signs out there on Highway 90, for example. 55 and 70, or 65, depending on where we're at. Sometimes 40 in construction zone. What would it be like if nobody paid the attention to the speed limit signs? What if they just got out here and says, okay, we're going to do 100? Yeah. Huh? Yeah. What's going to happen if everybody's doing that? There's not that many cops, right? What if everybody decided, well, it's against the law to steal from the Circle K, but I'm going to do it anyway? What would happen? Let's go over to some places like Portland, Oregon. Remember the riots here several years ago? What happened to all those stores over there that everybody says, well, it's against the law, but we're going to go ahead and take everything in this store? Huh? Hurt the business. Huh? Yeah, I mean, when you see people, what would it be like if everybody in this room decided, hey, we need televisions and things, let's go to Walmart and take it. See, that's what's going on here. Neglect of civic virtue. There are laws, but nobody cares anymore. We're going to do it our way. We see that going on today all over this country. You know, we're going to do things our way. We'll break the law because we don't like things. All right, what about leadership without accountability? Rome had the senators. Rome had emperors. And nobody was accountable. They could do whatever they wanted to up until they stabbed Caesar to death, you know. But and Nero committed suicide. And, you know, we just go down the line. But you have leaders who are not accountable to the people. They can do what they want to do, be what they want to be, and that's what was going on in the Roman Empire. Widening distrust. Nobody trusted anything. So the plebes didn't trust the politicians. The politicians didn't trust the serfs or the plebes or anything else. So distrust. You worry about what's going on with politics, and the politics are worrying what's going on with society. Bread and circus distractions. A lot of unemployment in Rome at that time, and so what did Rome do? We'll just go ahead and put on a circus, and everybody can come to that, and we'll give them a piece of bread. That'll keep everybody happy. We'll just give them some freebies, all right? And that's going to keep them happy. Well, that only goes so far. After a few centuries of that, you run out of bread, all right? And so, and most people say, well, why should I work if I'm going to get fed and entertained? Okay? And then you have a loss of shared moral framework. Nobody cared about morality. It reached that point where everything was acceptable. Okay? That's the Roman Empire. All right? On July the 4th this year, the semi-quintennial, that's a $5 word, simply means 250-year birthday, all right? That's what we're going to have here July the 4th. It's going to be 250 years old. Now remember, it took Rome 1,200 years to get where they were. Question. You think there's a neglect of civic virtue in our land? Do you think that there are leaders in politics without accountability? Do you think, huh? Yeah. Right. Distrust. Nobody trusts anybody anymore. All right? When we were kids, I used to never lock my door. Now I'm going to lock my door before I get out of the house, all right? Now, bread and circus distractions. We don't do that. No, but we do have freebies to give to people, don't we? And we give it to people to appease them, not to take care of them. What about all our vets that are homeless? We've got a lot of guys who come back from wars that are struggling right now. What about all these people who cannot get a job? Huh? We're not taking care of those people. You know, and you know, is there a lot of graft going on out there? You betcha. There's a lot of it, all right? But I went with Dixie. She met him when they were out serving food one night. A homeless vet here in this community who lives in the woods in a tent with his dog. He can't get a job because he can't even go get cleaned up, shaved, or bath, or anything like that. Wears rags. We carried him a bunch of blankets and some food for his dog and what have you, and left it out there in his tent. But you have people like that who cannot get out of the home area. And they're the ones we should be taking care of. Instead of spending billions and billions of dollars on programs to, you know, talk about gay, lesbians, and things over in Nicaragua, or whatever it might be. Why not spend that money on building some housing, affordable housing, or places for people to be? There was a church in Mesquite, Texas at one time that I forgot the name of it now. It's been so long ago. But it was the largest church in Texas. Had between 6,000 and 10,000 members. And they literally built an apartment complex for battered women with children. And they put up a place where they could stay safe, protected, not live on the streets. And the people there at the church that owned businesses would actually give them training and give them a job. And it helped them get off the street and what have you. And they could live there as long as they needed to before they got on their feet and were able to do it on their own. Why don't we do stuff like that? I mean, as a country we could, but we don't. And so this bread and circus distractions, we're giving bread to people who have no desire to do anything other than receive the freebies. Kind of like, I'll just do what I want. Well, guess what? That'll only go so far because sooner or later you're going to run out of money when everybody figures out, hey, we can do the same thing. Okay? Loss of shared morality, moral framework. What was sin yesterday is not sin today in our country. Okay? I mean, that's just a given. And so we've compromised. That's the United States of America. And I'm not just bad-mouthing America. I'm just saying we're only 250 years old, and we are where Rome was at 1,200 years old, all right? Babylon never considered the end of the road. I'm a queen, but the queen's going to be brought down. My suggestion is that we need to remember where we are. Because if we try to elevate ourselves and say, look at us, we can be in that same condition. The reason being, on a side note here, okay? You know what this is? Huh? Congress, right? Right. You know what they call that? A gathering of chimpanzees is also called a Congress. Yeah, I digress. Okay, just thought I'd mention that. Right? Now, what about core sin? The core sin of Babylon was self-deification. I am God. Do I? Listen, you lover of pleasure, Babylon, lounging in your security and saying to yourself, I am, and there is none besides me. I will never be a widow or suffer the loss of children. Now remember, he's presenting Babylon's attitude. I am, and there is none beside me. Sound familiar? Back over in chapter 45, God said the same thing. I am, and there is no other. Babylon is taking God's position. Okay? She didn't just defy God. She tried to imitate him. I am God on this earth. Right? Both of these will overtake you in a moment, on a single day, loss of your children and widowhood. They will come upon you in full measure in spite of your many sorceries and your potent spells. Now remember, Babylon had the magicians, they had astrology, they had all the various deities and everything else. And so they were involved in the occult quite a bit, all right? But what he said, in a moment, on a single day, it's going to be sudden total judgment. It's going to happen like that, Babylon. You're going to be brought down. And what he means is, in a moment and one day, Babylon's going to fall. And it does when the Medo-Persians come in. They wreak havoc on Babylon, all right? So trusting in alliances or systems or rituals will never stop God from accomplishing what he wants to accomplish when he says judgment's coming. That's what they were trusting in, okay? China has a hypersonic missile. I'm going to bring this in just for the heck of it. That hypersonic missile goes better than 6,000 miles an hour. And guess what? We don't have anything that can catch it. Okay? And it carries a nuclear warhead. And you think the United States is kind of scared about that right now. Okay? We don't have anything that can do it. Oh, we're trying to invent things like the laser rail guns and laser sighting targets and things like that. But we don't have it yet. And so if China decided to do this, what they could do is they could drop a nuclear blast above the United States, let's say above the city of Houston, or maybe above New York or something like that, and they have an electromagnetic pulse, and that electromagnetic pulse is going to shut down the power grid for hundreds of miles. Everybody's going to be in darkness. It wouldn't take but about 10 nuclear missiles to get through and shut down this country completely. Wonder how many things we have in the military that run off the internet. Wonder how many things have electronics involved with it, you know, like targeting systems on tanks and F-16s and all these other things, you know. So one bomb could do that. It could happen like that. And yet Babylon didn't think so, and sometimes we don't really worry about things like this. I'm not saying we got to worry about it. We just have to be aware of it, all right? You've trusted your wickedness. You've trusted yourself. You said, no one sees me. Your wisdom and knowledge mislead you when you say to yourself, I am, and there is no other beside me. Your wisdom and your knowledge mislead you. What's the old saying? You get too smart for your britches, right? Which is what's basically taking place with Babylon. They were the elite of the nations at that time. Okay? They had all the wise men. It's kind of like the United States right after World War II. We got all the smart German scientists. Okay? Russia got the second hand ones, you know? So we had a little jump on them. We were smart. We were ahead of the game and what have you. We're not ahead of the game right now. You know, we're in many areas. We are in a lot of areas, but not in many areas, all right? So don't let wisdom and knowledge mislead you. What we have here is sophisticated arrogance, puffed up pride that's not really deserved. They didn't lack intellect. They lacked humility. And there's a big difference. We're smart, we can do all these things, but be humble in the fact that, yes, I can do these things, but there's always somebody bigger. Okay? I remember when I was in school in the 6th grade, I was the head honcho in elementary school. Changed when I got in the 7th grade. I was a nobody. Jay Blackstone showed me that. Okay? but the whole point of the nutshell is you learn to be humble. Babylon didn't. Okay? The futility of Babylon's religion and magic. Disaster is going to come upon you, Babylon. You'll not know how to conjure it away. In other words, your magic trick, sleight of hands is not going to get rid of the disaster. This calamity is going to fall upon you that you cannot ward off. You can't buy your way out of it with ransom. It's a catastrophe you cannot foresee. Why? Because this is happening 150 years from now, and you're not even thinking about that. You can't foresee it, but it's going to suddenly come upon you. It's going to be there. All right? Sudden, inescapable disaster is coming, kind of like a sinkhole. You know? Remember the sinkhole out here at, what's the name of this place? Rip Van Winkle's? Out there at Lake. Yeah. When it just sank down. Then we had another one up here on right off of Highway 90 going to Homo, you know, sucked down all those trees and acreage and what have you. That's what it's going to be like for Babylon. It's going to come, it's going to happen, and you're going to get sucked down into it, and nobody's going to be able to prop you up, Babylon. And so, excuse me, you just keep on with your magic spells, with your many sorceries, which you've labored at since childhood. Maybe you'll succeed, and maybe you'll cause terror. Sarcasm. Okay? Your sorcery is not going to do anything. Go ahead and try it. Maybe it'll work. You know it's not. That's what God is saying to these people. Sarcasm, making ridicule of them, all right? And you just go ahead and do that and see how they work. That's kind of what God's saying. It's not going to work out for you. Nothing you do is going to stop this. All the counsel you receive has only worn you out. Let your astrologers come forward, those stargazers who make predictions month by month. Let them save you from what is coming upon you. Right? False wisdom. How often do you think people in leadership positions get stupid suggestions on how to run things? Oh, I'll try that, and then everything falls apart. Right? Okay. No matter how smart people think they are, they're not as smart as God. We see right here, he sees all of it. Okay? I think I can get out of this. But God's saying, no, you're not, because I'm going to put a barricade in front of you. All right? Well, I can get out of this one. No, you're not. I'm going to put an army in front of you. And so, we don't think about those things. We think we're in control, and we're not. Okay? The final collapse, no one left to save. Right? Surely they are like stubble. The fire will burn them up. They cannot even save themselves from the power of the flame. These are not coals for warmth. This is not a fire to sit by. All right? This fire is a fire of destruction. Okay? You're going to be consumed like stubble in a field. Like burning our cane fields every year. That's what's going to happen to you. It's going to burn and burn and burn and burn and burn. All right? However, there's not going to be any warmth. There's not going to be any rescue. There's not going to be anything but ashes. That's what's going to be left of Babylon. That's what God is trying to tell them there. That is all they are to you. These are you have dealt with and labored with since childhood. All of them go into their error. There's no one that can save you. Total abandonment. I used you. You disobeyed. You were cruel. You thought you were better than God. And now you're going to be abandoned to the ditches. Okay? That's where the chapter ends. That's where it began. Remember? A virgin, real pretty virgin, you're going to be desolate, sitting in the field, acting like a slave. Babylon's going to be desolate. Start, finish. Goes through all of it, how you got there, all right? Babylon trusted herself. You can't just trust yourself. You got to trust God, all right? And because she trusted herself, she's alone. Because she trusted herself, she's gone. All right, what's the big picture? Well, the big picture is this. Isaiah 47 isn't just about Babylon. No. I mean, we can extrapolate ideas from that and say, well, he's talking primarily about Babylon. But you've heard the old cliche, history repeats itself. Okay? When a nation gets to thinking they're more powerful than God and puts God on the back burner, this is going to happen. All right? Can't trust in your powers. Can't trust in nations. You can't trust in political systems. You can't trust in people, because all that does is confuse the things that we see that God's involved with. It confuses temporary authority with ultimate authority. Okay? We've got power as human beings, but God has total power. Okay? I am and there is none besides me was the words of Babylon. I am and there is no other, what God said. You cannot mimic and mock God, which is what Babylon did. Isaiah 46, God says, I've made you, I will carry you. He's going to do it, not a political system. Okay? Warns us of what happens when we try to carry ourselves. That's what chapter 47 is doing here, okay? 1, God bears people. 2, every other throne eventually collapses into dust. It will happen. Nations come, nations go. We're no different, folks. We're citizens in the kingdom of God. Okay? I live in the United States of America, and I'm going to do whatever I can to protect that, try to make it better. Well, my allegiance is to God. Okay? All right. Next week, Lord willing, we're going to be in Isaiah 48. Okay? Any questions, comments? If not,